Okay.
I call the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Welcome to the November 17th, 2025 meeting of the Library Commission. This is a hybrid meeting with commissioners, city staff, and members of the public participating in person at the Arriaga Family Recreation Center in accordance with public health guidelines for in-person meetings and the public participating remotely. Commissioners present include Laith Abdullah, Kim Crockett, me, Carol Orton, Sarah Siscott, Brian Westcott, our vice chair, and Daniel Yule. And staff present include Assistant Library and Community Services Director Nick Shegda and Library and Community Services Supervisor Rose Waldman. First, I'd like to start by welcoming Laith to as our newest member of the Library Commission. And I'd like to invite each of us to go around and introduce ourselves and just give a little summary. I don't know if you want to start or go last.
I'll go last.
Oh, okay. Brian, would you like to start?
Okay, a quick summary. I've been on the commission about a year. Very interested in been a citizen of Menlo Park for about 30. And just very interested in seeing the Menlo Park community thrive and the importance of the library in that community.
I'm Kim Crockett, and I've been on the commission for about as long as Brian, about a year. And similarly, I've been in Menlo Park as a resident for about 25 years. And I would love to see the library thrive for the whole city right now. I think it's a communal hub, and I'd like to see a lot more improvements and support.
Welcome. My name is Sarah, and I've been in Menlo Park for 4 years. I joined the commission this spring, and I'm really passionate about the library because I use it in all different facets of my identity as a project manager, as a patient advocate, as a mom to 2 young kids, and I'm so happy you're part of the team.
Laith already knows me, so it's okay. But I'm Shegda, the Assistant Director of Library and Community Services. I've been a Menlo Park resident on and off for as long as I've worked for the city, which is about 33 years.
Very impressive. Rose, would you like at this point to make a little introduction to yourself?
Happy to introduce myself. I'm Rose Waldman. I have, let's see, my pronouns are she, her. I've worked for the city since 2017. I've been the library supervisor since 2022. Prior to that, I was the adult services librarian for about 3.5 years. For that, about 1 year of temping. So I've spent my career in the city of Menlo Park. You can always reach out to me about anything having to do with our libraries. I am the supervisor, the LCS supervisor responsible for all library operations.
Great, thank you. And I am Carol Orton. I'm, as of tonight, the chair of the Library Commission because we've had some turnover. I've been a Menlo Park resident for 31 years. Both my kids went through all the Menlo Park public schools, and I've been involved off and on with a variety of organizations that support our public school system. And I've been on the Library Commission now. This is 2 years, 23, spring of 23. And I am the longest serving member on this current commission. That's 2 years. But also I've learned so much. I'm a big reader and I love libraries, and I wanted to give back to our local community, which is why I got involved a couple of years ago. So welcome.
My name is Daniel Yule, and I joined the commission just a few months after Sarah did in the summer. I've only been a Menlo Park resident for 3 years, I think, but I was feeling compelled to get involved in the local community. I love libraries. This is the place to go. So here I am.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Laith. I've been a Menlo Park resident for a little over 20 years. I moved out here from Texas to go to grad school and never left. And always have been in Menlo Park once we moved out of Stanford. Been a library card holder for a long time. My wife actually applied to be on the commission about 15 years ago. So we thought about it, didn't get it, but it's been in the back of our minds and, now more than ever seems a good time to get involved, and the library was my favorite place to be, and an opening came up, so it felt very good. I go to the library every day. I see and know Nick, and happy to be here. Thanks for the welcome.
Great, thank you. Tonight Nick will be helping facilitate our meeting. Nick, could you please take a moment and provide instructions to the commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Thank you, Chair Orton. For members of the public who are attending this meeting virtually and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage that raised hand feature at the bottom of the screen. Those who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, please press *9 to raise your virtual hand. Members of the public attending remotely who wish to speak, please take a moment to make sure your first and last name are updated on Zoom, or you can provide your name and the spelling if you are called upon. Public comment will be heard in the order received and is limited to 3 minutes in length. For members of the public attending in person, there are speaker cards available on this table right here next to me. Please complete one and turn it in before public comment is called for the item you wish to speak on. I think we say upon which you wish to speak, but there you go. If there are a large number of public commenters, the time limit may be adjusted by the chair in order to allow everyone a chance to comment. When your turn for online public comment has arrived, staff will unmute you. With that, I will return the meeting to the chair.
Question first, do we have anybody online?
We do not at current have any attendees.
Okay. Well, under public comment, the public may address the commission on any subject that is not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. You're not required to provide your name or city of residence, but it is helpful. Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment, other than to provide general information. So do we have any public comment on items not appearing on the agenda?
Any public comment? There is no one asking for public comment.
Okay, so we'll move to item D1 on our agenda, which is a study session to discuss ideas for a library-specific outreach in District 1. Staff will give a brief introduction. We'll take public comment and then we'll have the commission discuss this. Nick, do we?
I have a quick point of order or something like that, I guess.
Okay.
Would it be possible to also have a section F1 be part of this? Because there's some sort of interconnection between the two that I think we might want to get to. I'm fine if we don't want to, we just talk about it.
Sure, but if there's some, Commissioner Yule is asking about the department statistics and recent activities report. We can absolutely bring that up and talk about it in the context of the discussion about outreach to District 1.
Yeah.
And if there's a particular section you want to pull up, let me know and I'll pull it up. We can throw it up on the screen for everybody.
Okay.
Great. Just some background. And I'm gonna pull up the staff report a little bit for you guys. Here in the room and online. This particular item came from a desire by Commissioner Yule to discuss library-specific outreach or how we were doing outreach for the new branch library in the Belhaven neighborhood, which has been open a little more than a year now. And we did an information item last week, sort of setting the table, as it were, for it, sort of getting some information out there, getting your eyes on it. I added a few things to this particular staff report. One was a reference to the survey, the city's survey tools and methods, which we had reported out at a February meeting this year for the Library Commission. And the other one was pulling some stats on foot traffic, which is not the be all and end all for success, but I thought it was kind of an interesting measure since we had those statistics on foot traffic both here at the library at Alma Street and at the library, on Terminal Avenue. And just kind of, just sort of giving kind of a ratio, I guess, is what it is, about, foot traffic to population surge. Now, we can get into it a little more in our discussion about whether that's a really good measure or an effective one to use for how well we're doing. But I have that there. I also have, which I can pull up a little, I can pull that right now, because I thought this was interesting. And this is sort of a heat map of subscribers to the LCS newsletter. So we send out every week a newsletter, a library and community services newsletter that's advertising all of the things that are going on across the department, including the library. And there's most of our library events end up in that newsletter, but there's also other things that end up there, special card drives and the library art card contest and things like that. I just thought this was interesting. I didn't wanna, everything's a little blurry because we were trying to sort of like not.
What does it mean when they start?
Yeah.
That means there's more than one. And I think the yellow ones, you can see where they're located, are really located at the sort of addresses that have like apartments or condos. So those two right along Willow and then one along Hamilton back there. And then you can even see sort of back in the corner, sort of a nice cluster, which I think there's more sort of apartment complexes there. Just to get you an idea of the coverage. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody opens it and everybody reads it necessarily, but it's
So this shows who signed up.
who signed up.
Okay.
Oh,
So this was the addresses in the neighborhood that we consider hyper local to the Bellhaven Community Campus. So it is basically that flood triangle and the triangle on the other side of the one line and the Bellhaven triangle. And then a few kind of scattered ones that are not in that triangle, which are sort of the newer housing developments that are like off of Chilco out there. There's a couple newer ones that are coming in. So I just thought that was interesting. And I just kind of threw it up there to kickstart it a little bit. Happy to, after we take questions and public comment, come back and talk about all this stuff again. But that's my introduction.
so this is, just to clarify, this is who signed up.
This is
and
who's
not-
receiving that LCS.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to
And do you-
opt in.
Does the library have, I thought somewhere along the way, you can track who actually opens it?
We can track open rates and click rates for all of the different links in the newsletter, but we haven't sliced it up that finely. We report the subscriber numbers and the open rates and the click rates. It's in the statistics every month that we do. I don't remember when when we started reporting those. I think it might be about a year.
Yeah.
But I haven't correlated open rates with hyperlocal. I just thought it was interesting as a data point, because we're talking about who's hearing about the library, how are people hearing about the library? So I just thought that was kind of interesting.
So at this point, I think we need to ask for public comment, but I also, following up on Daniel's question, maybe it would be helpful for you to make the presentation from F1, about Bellhaven, so we have all that information in front of us to discuss with that.
I mean, that's fine, whatever way works.
What do you think?
Yeah.
Sure, let me see if I can pull that up here, because I think I didn't think I'd be talking about F1. I didn't have it pulled up. But I can get it here. If you want to go ahead and do the public comment call. I think I can do two things at once there.
Okay, Nick, do we have any public comment on this D1 item?
If you would like to make a comment on item G1, the study session on library specific outreach in District 1, please indicate so to staff now. And there's no public comment on item G1. Here I'm going furiously clicking many clicks to get to,
I just seem to remember the F1 had a section on Valhaven. Or was that in the minutes, maybe? I don't know.
I mean, there are some of the stats are broken down between the libraries, like
Yeah.
calculation.
Yeah.
Things like that.
and back here, sorry, I do the old dude thing where I narrate my actions on the computer. Apologies to any millennials.
I didn't know that was an old good thing.
Or what I do.
Yeah.
I think of it as an old dude thing to narrate my actions, but
Maybe.
the library is full of people walking around talking to themselves, like, I better go over here, okay, I got that meeting, so. It seems normal to me, it may not be normal to everybody else. Okay, here we go, here's F1. And this is basically is it the statistics, Commissioner Yule, that you were interested in?
Yeah, the tables of statistics.
Yes.
Okay, here we go. All right, and I can make these bigger, so let's not, but don't panic. And which particular statistics were you interested in pulling them up?
The main one that I was looking at, well, there's two, I guess, was the circulation and reference questions.
Okay, let's make it bigger. All right, here are library patron questions answered. The top one is for the library here on the Burgess campus, and the bottom one is for the Bellhaven branch libraries.
So what I was interested in is this, you showed the stats just a few moments ago about foot traffic, which shows that foot traffic is roughly in line with what we'd expect based on population.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little fuzzy, and we can get into a little back and forth about what population served means.
Exactly,
I mean,
yeah.
I think it's a lot easier to sort of define population served for the branch library, since we say that the population served is contained within that hyper-local fence, as it were, that geo fence that we use for giving folks the hyper-local rate. However, there probably are, and I know there are, people from East Palo Alto and from the North Fair Oaks neighborhood of Redwood City who also come to the campus and use the library and the recreation services there. In the same way, there are quite a number of people who come to the main library who are not even Menlo Park residents, who are Palo Alto residents or residents of, say, Woodside and Bertola Valley and Atherton. I would say those are probably the four main areas where we see non-resident, with finger quotes, use at the main library. So the ratios could be off, but short of asking everybody, hey, where are you from? Right to the door every time, which is not really something that the library philosophically wants to get behind,
Yeah.
because we're more into like, hey, everybody come in and use the library. We don't want people to feel like we're tracking them when they're using the library. That's kind of antithetical to what we're doing. Oh, and I've gone fairly far afield, but yes, these kind of don't have that, they don't have that same ratio that we have from foot traffic. So with both library circulation and with questions like reference questions asked, and I think even with holds, in and outgoing holds, you can see that the ratios are much different. So I can't math well enough to tell you what this ratio is for reference questions answered, but I can tell you, you know, roughly in order of magnitude, that's like 6, 1 to 6 there, and this is like 1 to 8, which is less than the foot traffic one.
Yeah, so one of the questions that I had about that, about the circulation stats in particular, and maybe it says this somewhere and I just didn't see it. When we're talking about library items circulated, does that mean items from the collection at that branch that are circulated, or does it mean items that go through that branch to be circulated? Because, for example, I don't think I've ever checked out a book from the Bellhaven branch, but I get books shipped there and then I check them out from there all the time.
That's a really good question, but I
I
think
believe that it's items checked out.
it's checked out at that location.
So
Yeah.
it might be an item that lives there, or it might be an item that's been brought there on hold, but I'm pretty sure that that stat is sorry to jump in.
No,
But
please.
I'm pretty sure that stat is just items checked out at that location.
But that is something that's easy enough to follow up on and let you know next meeting or even in between.
Because basically I looked at the stat that you had there, flipped up and I was like, oh, great, we don't even need to do anything. You know, it's.
But that was my intention.
We're great, so we're all good, and then I was like, well, actually, there's sort of a discrepancy there. So I doubt we're gonna be able to dig into the full depth of it here, and I wanna open up to other discussions as well, but I suspect that can be like a starting place maybe for a subcommittee or some other group that tries to figure out, is this a problem? What can we do about it? What are some rules we want to set to try and address that?
Yeah, interestingly, this has been, in my experience, a fairly common, it's a recurring problem that's been discussed, you know, at the library, but also with other city services in the Bellhaven neighborhood. So, do people know about what city services are? Do people have easy access to them? Are we sort of putting the word out in the right way, in the right language, at the right time? Those kinds of questions are top of mind when we're doing public outreach in the Bellhaven community, because I think there, especially with a brand new building like this, there's kind of a disconnect between walking in and seeing this amazing brand new building and the number of people that you would expect to see in an amazing brand new building. I'll put that up there and then we'll leave it back to your discussion, because I have some more thoughts about that, but I would like to hear what you guys think or have to say about that.
Other
Someone else
thoughts?
should talk, that's not me.
Well, repeat the question, let me.
It wasn't a question so much as an observation that I had, which was that I feel a little bit of a disconnect between walking into the brand new Bellhaven Community Campus, which is a beautiful, beautiful building, and it's brand spanking new. And and especially at certain times of day, you're wondering why the building isn't full of people.
Right.
And I think that, I'm not sure if that exactly is what generated the request from Commissioner Yule to talk about this sort of thing. But I can absolutely see why people would have that question.
Yeah, so one thing you know, I think you'd have to look at is demographics, like in Bellhaven, are they more people working, for instance, in the day, whereas there might be more retirees or young parents, I don't know. The demographics could be different, so the availability of time could be one thing. These are things I don't really know, but you know, who uses the library during the day? Here, the main library.
And I have all sorts of anecdotal comments about who uses the library during the day, but no like hard statistics. I'd say there's probably 3 main user groups of the library during the day, and Rose here will jump in, I'm sure, if I go off track. I would say, yes, retirees, so older folks.
Yep.
Come in and use the library. I see a lot of caregivers with small children come in to use the library, so they're attending story times, but they're also, it's part of their routine. Go to the park, look at the ducks, go to the library, look at some books. And then I see students or folks who are working from home, so sort of remote workers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Who are taking advantage of having a little more space, not being distracted by their home surroundings, and taking advantage of the Wi-Fi to work at the library. Those are sort of the 3 groups that I see at the Palmer Street Library.
And I would add the 4th, which is folks who don't necessarily fall into one of those categories, but don't have another place to go.
Playhouse.
Or maybe either job seekers, people who are not currently employed. Or not currently employed on a typical work schedule. Or folks who really don't have anywhere else to be. But
And
yes,
how will these categories compare with who's using the Bellhaven Library?
I was gonna ask that question, is there
I-
enough?
no, it's
authorization,
the same groups, it's just in smaller.
Smaller numbers of the.
Yeah.
Board group?
Typically, we get. Yeah, I would say we have fewer caregivers with kids,
Mhm.
during the day. A lot of what we see at Maine is a paid caregiver
Mhm.
who is not necessarily this kid's full-time grown-up. We don't see that so much at Bellhaven. Sometimes we see kids running around on their own. And sometimes we see kids who, I mean, they're either in a daycare program or they're in school, but we, they'll come in after. So the children's library is very quiet during times when the children's library here is at its busiest.
Interesting.
So that said, I mean, has there been sort of Ravenswood specific outreach about the new Bellhaven branch and things like
Yeah,
that? Like
I mean,
bringing kids in for field trips and things
yeah.
like that.
We haven't brought any kids in for field trips. The Beechwood School that's across the street
Yeah,
is the most active user demographic because they're across the street. The Bellhaven School that we moved out of has, I believe, been I mean, it's not a long walk, but it's a long walk for a small group of kids or a group of small kids. So our relationship with the Bellhaven School has been somewhat complicated because we share that space. And because before COVID, we opened that space up as a public space during the same hours that we are open here at Maine.
right.
Prior to that, with that Bellhaven Library opened in 1991. And between 1991 and I want to say 2019. But Nick, check me if I'm wrong. It was a school library during the school day and only became a public library after school was out. Then I believe it was at the beginning of Sean's tenure. And in an effort to provide more public library services, we at some point said to the school, well, we're gonna open this space up for the public during this, we want it to be same. But what that meant was that school no longer felt comfortable using that library space.
Yeah.
So they essentially started their own library in a different room.
Yeah,
That was really, there was a breakdown of any kind of communication there, because I think that they felt, I mean, I don't want to project, but having spoken, because I interfaced with they have a volunteer librarian there. And I interfaced with her when we were moving out, because we ended up giving
should we
children.
Buckley for the reading room, or is there somebody else?
Can't remember her name off the top of my head, I'm sorry, it's been
Yeah,
year and a half. But we gave her some of our old materials, when we were deselecting for the old library. And so we interacted and she was lovely. But they were definitely looking forward to having a library that wasn't a classroom. Because the way that they had just been doing it was she had her whole collection that she just kept in a different room and she would like trundle trucks between. So I think all this is to say that it's a little bit of a complicated relationship. Because we shared that space for a while, and I would love to rebuild that relationship, but I think there's a mindset of. They don't need us. They don't want our services. Because there was that, well, we're a public library, we're gonna be open to the public. Which. So, I might be editorializing a little bit.
Yeah, I think that it's a complicated relationship there where the school during the school day is very focused on certain learning objectives, like
Well-
they're.
They're also interested in safety.
Yeah,
I mean, it's completely understandable.
yeah,
They don't want to bring the kids into a space where like anybody can be there. Right. That's
Right.
totally understandable.
Yeah.
I would love to do some more outreach to them.
But it just seems logical
Yeah.
now to kind of, with the makerspace, for example. To do something with that, with the tools.
So if there was gonna be a subcommittee working on that, that might be an area to look into, right? The relationship with the school and.
Well, I think that outreach falls within the purview of staff.
Sure, okay.
but if you were gonna make a recommendation to somebody, that's something that you could do certainly. I think there were a lot of relationships that were built. With the old Bellhaven branch library, for instance, with after school homework center that we had there and the Boys and Girls Club in Bellhaven, which is right down the street. So I think it's maybe even closer to the new library than it was to the old library. And with the Bellhaven School, obviously, we had a tutor who was working with Bellhaven School students who would work with them in the library there after school. So there are relationships that we had that were location based that we haven't necessarily built in the new building.
Mhm.
How hard would it be to rebuild like the tutoring piece or the homework
We
center piece?
That is not super easy to rebuild. The old homework center was grant based and that grant money has gone away. And it was a lot easier to build kind of a big. Homework centers are big, noisy, loud, active
Mhm.
places. They should be. And with COVID, that all went away. And then trying to build it back, we just haven't gotten there yet in building back that homework
Would
center.
would that be something good or a goal?
It would
that
be
you would
good.
want to have come back?
Absolutely.
Both at Maine and at Bellhaven, I would say.
Yeah, but there are complicating factors to those, the two complicating factors being staff and time. Staff, time and money are the complicating factors there, where we had grant specific positions before for both literacy and for homework center that have gone away during the pandemic and haven't come back. So
What was the source of the grant?
state funding for the homework center. And I believe state funding for the literacy project. Though it was a little bit of a questionable thing, because the state funding for adult literacy is really targeted towards English language literacy. And that's not really what our community needed. They really needed English as a second language. Most of the people who were using our adult literacy services before the pandemic were literate in a language other than English.
Mhm.
They just weren't literate in English, which is, I think it's great to teach people who are literate in a different language other than English literacy, but that's not the way the state grant was set up.
Sarah's been trying to make a comment.
One idea I have, it probably has problems, but I'd love to hear what those are. When we read the results of the survey, it seemed like there were respondents who were interested in volunteer opportunities. So one creative solution might be to staff a homework or tutoring center with volunteers. Maybe it could even be high schoolers, but I'm sure there are also staffing requirements to manage and train them.
That's
right.
right.
Yeah.
Be a staff member who
Yeah.
was then the volunteer coordinator.
Right.
Yeah,
But no, that's a great point, and we did have volunteers in that homework center before. We had money to develop volunteers and train volunteers to work in the center in the old branch library.
And I just had one follow-up question about the tabling at community events. I know like. I was just trying to think, are there any that maybe we're missing, like in Redwood City, I know the library has a table at the farmer's market, but the Menlo Park Farmer's Market is by Trader Joe's, it's sort of the wrong location. I didn't know if anyone just had any ideas of an event where where they thought, oh, it might be great to have library representation there to increase awareness. I couldn't think of it, but I wanted to ask. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
There is a kind of a farmer's market in Bellhaven, but it is like literally in front of the library.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Yeah.
One last quick question, and it doesn't have to be exact number. How much were these grants? You know, round numbers.
I think in the one for the literacy, the adult literacy program was pretty significant because it was paying for part of a full-time staff position and then a couple of hourly staff positions. But the adult literacy program also had its own dedicated 501c3
Right,
called Project Creative Literacy Partners, which is now just called Literacy Partners in the Park, to help support some of that. Those
so
kinds
is it, you
So
say,
that's that one, so I would say both of them were probably on the order of like $500,000 a year.
oh, okay, that's, yeah.
So,
Okay,
why not in the couch?
yeah, I mean, then it's, but the, you know, it's. When things are important, then we try to find ways to support them. This one has been, these have both been kind of a sticky wicket for us coming out of the pandemic. Both
Mhm.
the homework center and adult literacy have been tough to restart, and we've made several attempts we got really close to starting a homework center. And the person that we were hiring for it backed out at the last minute, so it's been tough to manage. It really does take a little bit of additional resources to get programs. It's a lot easier to keep things going that have been going than it is to start things up
It's a
again.
huge startup
Yeah.
investment to any kind of thing like this. And I would say that if you recall, when we were opening Bellhaven, we asked for 3 positions for the library. And we got 1. So there are certain things like the makerspace and like the homework center that it's just numbers.
Yeah,
You asked
Our
for,
goal.
you asked for 6?
we asked for 6 total, the
We asked for
department asked
6
for
total,
6 total and
3
got
for the library.
3, which is not a small lift for the city.
Right.
It's tough for the city to justify 3 fully loaded positions.
Yeah.
It's you have to really have a very strong case to get additional staff. The bar is set pretty high, and I think that's, you know, that's probably a good thing. You're not just kind of giving away. It's complicated.
It's complicated.
It's complicated.
I would just add, I know that the Ravenswood Education Foundation is supporting the Ravenswood School District in their literacy initiative, and it's pretty well funded, but it's also very challenged with resources, and I just feel like there's a partnership or something in there where the library, the Bellhaven Branch Library could help support that literacy initiative in the district. And
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
that would
also
be,
benefit with the homework center, perhaps there could be funding there because the Ravenswood Education Foundation is the funding arm for it, and I think it would be attractive to.
yeah, I mean, we're always on the lookout for good partners for services that the community needs,
But
so.
also remember that anything having to do with a homework center. There has to be a conversation about the services that we're offering in the after-school program. Is anything that we do as the library is going to be free.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the conversation that was happening when we were talking about, when we were trying to get someone in. It. Whatever we would offer couldn't be an after-school program, because we only offer an after-school program. Not under the auspices of the library.
I guess I'm confused.
I think what Rose is talking about is that there's an after-school program, it's a child development program that.
Oh.
That's not free, and that's the Bellhaven Youth Center,
Got a whole room,
and it has its own space.
so
in-
we can't offer what they're offering, but for free.
But that would be a homework center.
Right, they're doing the same thing.
But we would
There are,
do whatever we
that's,
would
but
offer.
childcare is,
We would need to be very clear about the fact that it's a space for people to come and do homework. It's not an after-school program,
yeah,
so, you know, it.
Which the
and-
distinction is not always that clear necessarily to people who might be using the services. It's like, that's where the kids go after school is different. There's a different level of
Right.
both
In an
licensing
enrollment
and
situation,
licensing and level of supervision and
Right.
care
Right.
in one program versus another program. So this one, the Bellhaven Youth Center is a licensed childcare facility. You know, there are educational requirements, there's a licensing arm from the state that comes out and looks at all the facilities. And that's that thing. A homework center is much more lightly regulated, but it's also not offering the same kind of services that the Bellhaven Center is, so.
but the Bellhaven Youth Center, just so, I mean, I guess I'm confused, it's not the library.
No,
It is not,
Right,
it's
So I
not,
guess-
but it is
That's what
library
it-
and community services, and it's in the same building.
yes,
So,
but
we
does
have
that, why,
to, just have to be very much aware of the whole ecosystem.
it's just another complicating factor there. I mean, I would expect that. And
if it wasn't in the building, would it matter? In the same building?
I don't think that's the question,
I have to be very careful about library programming as well, to make sure that we're not offering something that. I don't wanna say something that does the same thing that a rec program does.
yeah. Getting a little bit far off from marketing in District One, but it's a good discussion, and we could
We could probably spend the whole evening,
take it off.
so maybe we could. Circle back to the suggestion by somebody that there be a subcommittee who could look. In more detail at some of these issues. Mull them over and then bring things up, would that be helpful? What would the mission or goal of that subcommittee be? Anybody have any thoughts or comments on that?
I mean, I think I support doing that. That's a good idea. I'll start with that. But I think that the goal or mission would be to investigate some of the things that we're talking about tonight.
Right.
You know, look into some of these ways of reaching out, see if there's anything we can do to support the staff or anything like that. And the goal, I think, would be to try and improve the rates of some of these areas where the Bellhaven branch is lagging behind the Elmer branch. It is also a new branch, so it's difficult to know exactly, but I think maybe the first thing that the committee has to do is establish exactly what the goal is going to be. I don't know if we can figure that out right now or if we have to. Never started something before, so I don't know.
But you could do
Kind
an
of like the
exploratory
So-
start. The first step might be to look at the relationships and these dynamics and the history and. You know, one thing we have to be careful about too is. Does it meet their needs given their capability? Like there might be just less people that are free during the day, so. You know, the numbers are never gonna be the same, but I don't know that.
Right, I guess that's sort of, I think, step one for
Right.
the subcommittee is are these numbers fine? Maybe they are. Maybe
Yeah.
it's satisfying the community exactly that we need. The program attendance, for example, is higher as a percentage of the population for the Menlo or for the Belhaven branch than elsewhere. So maybe everything's great and we're okay. But yeah, I think it would be worthwhile to just dive in a little bit and then establish from there what our goals are in the areas where we might be behind, and then come up with a plan to execute the goals.
Like,
I wanted to fire up some questions along with that. One, Brian asked a question about demographics. I was wondering if the city can provide or have some of those demographics as part of this conversation. Because I think they come up as you come into different ideas. Quick questions were, does the library do any mailers, sending out mails? We did some research about how other libraries think about outreach. One community identified by a library in the South is they have a lot of people moving. And so they just actually send mails to people when they first move into an apartment, right? And then they actually get a mail. Is there any mailing capabilities of the library? Second, there was a statistics on tabling. I've been to a couple of tables and they've handed out books. Are all tabling of that nature, or is there tabling where actually can register and do get a card while you're at that table? That's another outreach I've seen by another library, but I wasn't sure if we had that capability. And then another question again of what are capabilities of the library is a mobile library. That was another kind of outreach, and I don't know if we have. I've seen a van actually that looks like a library, but is there a mobile library capability of Menlo Park? Is that a resource basically? So these are just questions of what resources exist today or have been tried, but I think they feel into this other body that is going to ask this question. What are the goals? What's the demographics? And then churn out ideas.
Yeah, I think just briefly, we could probably get some demographic information. I don't know if it's gonna be detailed enough, but the Belhaven neighborhood is part of a different census tract than the rest of Menlo Park, so that gives you some ability to make some demographic choices. It's demographic decisions based on demographics. Time talking. It's tough because, the census is every 10 years.
Yeah.
And then sometimes some of the information in between is a projection. There are sort of inter periods where they do get some information, but it may not be all of it as up to date, especially for a community that's undergoing as much change as the Belhaven neighborhood is going through. I mean, there's been a lot of new construction of housing, and a lot of new construction of other things in the Belhaven neighborhood. It's been changing a lot. So, but I think it's a good point. Yes, the library we do have the ability to mail things out. We tend not to do that too often because it's expensive, and then a lot of people don't actually. We haven't seen that it's proven to be effective. But again, we haven't done like some serious A/B testing on things like, let's have a program and mail it out, and like only people who get the mailer will know that the program is going on. We usually do kind of a everything at once sort of approach when we're marketing, which is we're putting it out on our social feeds. We have things in the library. We have things in the LCS newsletter that's got a really good sort of throw area. And we'll have like postcards or posters that people can take away with them when they're visiting the libraries. But a problem for our library, and it's not unique to our library, is how to get to people who don't come into the library. How do you get to non-users? How do you market all these wonderful things and services that you have to people who don't think the library is for them, or they just don't consider it for whatever reason? And that's a kind of a sticky wicket for a lot of libraries, and I think especially in the Belhaven neighborhood is a problem that we can probably work on.
Actually, I just thought about signage, because the library in the Belhaven Community Center is two libraries. It's the children's in the front and the first level, and the adult in the second level. And then to get to the library, I mean, I'm just wondering, and I don't remember. Is there a big sign that says Bellhaven Branch Library, like out on Terminal?
There used to be.
because-
I don't, there used to be one on Willow. Pointing up, Ivy Street to the branch library, but I don't think that there's one, on Terminal.
I mean,
Could be wrong
maybe
about that.
having, maybe even 2 or 3 very nice signs in mainstream areas off of Willow that are across 101 even. Or close to 101, just saying, you know, library this way. Because I don't think, there's so many people, I live in District 5, and there's so many people who have never stepped foot in the branch library, which is kind of criminal. It's a gorgeous
But I thought
building.
we were really focusing on trying to get people who live in District
Of
1.
course, but I'm saying awareness of even having that there, you know, I think then it becomes a thing for the hyper local people, like, wow, it's an attraction, that's in our backyard.
Right.
Because it doesn't feel like it's valued enough to have the signage pointing people in the neighborhood as well as across the entire city. Or at least a little bit closer.
But I think this supports this idea of this is a complex, there's a lot here and we could, you know, we really need people to look at this more in depth beyond the meeting.
And it sounds like you would be interested in doing that.
I would be, yeah.
And anybody else who would be willing to,
Okay,
like,
yeah, so do we have to make a,
procedurally, would we do this in a study session to, Great, another
I think
subcommittee?
so, yeah, I think you can, it's, don't normally make motions and form subcommittees out of a study session, but if we're wrong, we can just come back and do it again next month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make it a regular business item for next month
yeah.
and do it that way, but
Or
we could sort of come to the
Yeah,
understanding that
give it-
you'd like to form a subcommittee with Commissioner Yule and Commissioner Abdullah to look into District 1 marketing, library specific marketing for District 1.
yeah, and
I'd
use
be
of,
interested in joining as well with the caveat that I'm also the next most junior person on the committee. So if there were a less junior person who were interested in joining that committee, I would defer to him/her.
I think 3 is a really good number
Yeah.
for a committee, and the other 3 of us are still continuing our Library of the Future subcommittee in some form, so I think it makes sense. that
Yeah,
we-
it's-
Yeah,
This
And so-
subcommittee would be goal 5 of the work plan, really.
right, there you go.
So it's kind of perfect.
Yeah, goal 5 of the work plan, I mean, I've actually got that up for a future, on this agenda, so we'll just.
yeah, maybe that was the one that was, anyway.
Yeah.
So we could either informally do it now, or we could have a motion and.
You can make a motion now, and if I check with the city clerk and she's like, oh, then we can just do it again.
To put it on the agenda for next time, and in the
Real quick,
meantime, the
yeah.
3 of you could meet and, you know, come up with. A plan of action to discuss with the group at our next meeting. Well, I guess the next meeting is a joint one with Parks and
The
Rec.
next one's pretty light, yeah, the December one's pretty light, but we could do
We could at
it.
least take a vote if a vote was required, and you guys could have some time over the next, 6 weeks, and then in our January meeting. Have another substantive discussion.
And as Kim pointed out, they already have a mission, we have goal 5.
Yeah, number
That-
5, is plan and advise library program development and operations, development center, including. And these are three sort of specifics broken out under that, but there can be other things under that. Goal.
So would someone like to make their motion?
I'll make a motion
All right,
to start a Bellhaven focused subcommittee to advise on community specific marketing
in support of,
in support of the Bellhaven.
yeah, for
Goal 5.
work plan number 5.
Yeah.
A second. Commissioner Crockett seconds. And you need to do a roll call.
I do.
Can you also make it sound good in the minutes?
It always does sound good here. In support of goal 5. Okay, so what I have is a motion by Commissioner Yule and seconded by Commissioner Crockett to form a Bellhaven focused subcommittee to advise on community specific, or we could say District 1 library specific marketing in support of work plan goal number 5.
Could we change it to engagement from marketing? As sort of a more broad.
Yeah, yeah. Not-
District 1 specific library engagement.
Outreach, right, too, outreach and engagement.
In support of. Now let's see, work plan goal 5. Hopefully I can read that tomorrow when I'm looking at my notes. So what I have is a motion to form a subcommittee. To advise on District 1 specific library engagement in support of Library Commission Work Plan Goal number 5. Does that sound good?
That's good to me.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
Then I have to take a roll call vote. Oh, and the subcommittee is composed of.
Right.
Commissioners Yule, Sisbot and Abdullah. And the vote to form the subcommittee, Commissioner Abdullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sisbot, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Yule, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Orton, how do you vote?
Yes,
And the motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Schaefer absent. Thank you.
great. So we'll move on now to regular business. Under this item E on our agenda, the Library Commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require Library Commission approval. First item is item E1, which is approving the minutes from the October 2025 meeting. Nick, do we have any public comment on this item?
Any comment on item E1? No.
And do any of the commissioners have any discussion or would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Anybody second? Mr. Sisbot?
All right, the motion is to approve the meeting minutes from the October 20th, 2025 meeting. Commissioner Abdullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sisbot, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Yule, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Orton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next we have item E2, which is to set milestones for the Library Commission for our work plan for 25-26. Staff will provide a brief introduction for the item, take public comment, and then we'll begin our discussion.
This is a very brief introduction to the item, which is that the Library Commission has now an approved work plan from the proposed by a work plan proposed by the commission and then submitted to the city council, and they had some edits, and now this is the approved work plan for the next fiscal year. And Vice Chair Westcott suggested in our October meeting that we should probably put some milestones in place so that the commission can make sure that they can try to get these done during the coming year, or at least work towards getting them done in the coming year. That is the extent of my introduction. I'll stop sharing just for now, but I can bring that back up when we get into the discussion.
Okay. Have we done public comment?
We have not.
All right, let's do public comment.
Any public comment on item E2, setting milestones for the Library Commission work plan for 2025-26? Seeing no comment, back to you.
Any discussion? If any thoughts on milestones that we can set for our.
Um, Well, maybe we can go in order.
I'll pull them back here.
Item one seems to be ongoing,
Yeah,
so that would be, I would say item two is around the library of the future, so I would say one goal is to support the study session at some point and make sure that that is at least being considered by the council. We can't really do much more than just keep that promoted. And then we met and we talked about some short-term, long-term goals, which would be, one would be tied to the near-term capital improvements and to get clarification on those and make sure, you know, see when they were scheduled or how they could be accommodated in the budget either this year or next year. So, we probably, well, that probably should be done before the budget is set. So I would say January, February, when's the budget cycle?
They start setting, so interestingly, they do mid-year adjustments in January, February to the current budget, but they're also starting to build the budget for the coming fiscal year in January, February, March. And then April and May, it's kind of presented to the city council and then is approved by the city council in June. Usually fairly late in June. So they start to have public meetings, in my recollection, end of May and in June. So I think your comment on January, February is probably a good one if you're looking to get something into a budget for the next fiscal year.
Yeah.
But looking at where it is in the CIP or in the section of the budget that's not part of the CIP, for those who are used to the city lingo, it's capital improvement project program, capital improvement program. Capital improvement projects under the capital improvement program are usually large infrastructure types of projects. Think we're gonna repave all the streets in
Mhm.
District 5 this year, or the roof on the police substation is falling in and we need to budget for it to be replaced in 3 years. Those sorts of things. A lot of the CIP projects recently have been tied to energy efficiency and sort of greening the city for the climate action plan. But there are other things that are in there that are kind of multi-year things where they're just having funding for the study of separating the railroad crossings at Ravenswood Avenue and in the city. So those are multi-year projects that they budget out 10 years in advance. So some of the things like a new library would be a capital improvement project. So that would be big enough that it would have to, with the city councils, you know, if they had approved it, would go into the capital improvement program as a project. Something like the library's HVAC system needs to be replaced. May already be sort of on a schedule for public works, because they did a big kind of facility conditions report a couple years ago.
2022.
Yep,
Mhm.
it's 3 years ago now. And they set out a schedule for those things, for HVAC, for carpeting, for the walls, like they put a timer on all of it. Some of those don't fall into the CIP because they're not big enough, even if they're $500,000 or something, that might be a CIP project, but some of the smaller things like, we wanna redo all the furniture, that may
Right.
not be something that rises to the threshold of the capital
Yeah.
project, it might be something that's built into the annual budget.
So when you look at the goals, the short term is number 3 goal.
Yes.
So maybe we should review and see what's on the list and have an understanding if it was maybe paid for, or how it could be paid for, and what's the timing? And or if it's just pushed off until further funds can be. So it sounds like a February,
Yeah, that's.
For number
something I think
3.
Could be done,
Okay, so
probably in
question,
February.
who would either the subcommittee or who can provide that information to us about? I mean, do you know that, or do you have, is this something that Public Works has to be?
It's a public
involved in?
works thing, I mean, I can provide the report, the facility condition report, which is something that was kind of an
Right.
internal thing, but I don't know how Public Works has it sequenced for their buildings minor budget. They have a buildings minor and a buildings major, I think most of the things that we're talking about in short-term improvements would be buildings.
right, that's number
Minor.
3, minor.
Right,
But that's that aside, so that's sort of regular ongoing facility upkeep. For the whole city, which Public Works is responsible for. If the library commission says, no, we are hearing from our residents that we really need to have. New carpeting in the whole library, it's falling apart, it's terrible, we need to do it now. That might be something that LCS could ask for as an item in their own budget. Separate from the Public Works facilities budget. So it's a little fuzzy on some of it.
Right, but that's maybe what we have to sort out. That's the goal, is to sort out who has the money, if it falls under Public Works, or if it doesn't, where could it fall? And then report back to the full commission in February.
So what I'm hearing is number 3 is February.
Is that, I'm proposing, that, I'm not,
As a milestone checking.
yeah, just as a,
at the latest.
What are we doing about number 2 though? You said that was sort of.
Yeah,
we
well,
can't
it's
do anything
because-
Because we're waiting for the city council.
My view is that 2, 3, and 4 all were part of the big report that the full
Right.
commission approved. And so, I think we need to figure out ways to move it along. We already completed number 4. We finished, number 4 is done and is now in the hands of our liaison on the city council, Jennifer Wise, who is having discussions with relevant people about whether and when that happens. So we can report back as we.
yeah, I would say every meeting we can at least report
Yeah, we can
status,
report back. So it's really number 2 and 3,
right,
that we also need to follow up on, and maybe number 3 is the one where we just need more information about. We had, I think, a pretty lengthy meeting with you and Rose about what this, like,
Right.
top level, top short-term and medium-term improvement things that you've mentioned, like carpet, furniture, HVAC. And I didn't get any sense that those were at the top of anybody's list, within the city. And so to find out more about how to move those along, if in 2022, Public Works identified HVAC as needing to be revamped and nothing has happened, and we don't know where it fits in it. I mean, that's just like,
And the bathrooms, yeah.
and the bathrooms.
That would be a CIP project.
Right.
That would be definitely a CIP.
and what we're saying is we should do that timely enough not, maybe not influence the budget, but at least be able to ask the city questions, like,
Yeah.
why isn't this in
I
the
would like to
budget?
see us report back on that by the, I think what was the January meeting? At least get going on it and not wait till February, because
Okay,
January is gonna be
maybe
pushed
that's
back,
too soon. Yeah, it's
pushed back a week because the 3rd Monday is. I believe
Yeah,
it's the
it's-
19th.
yeah, it's Martin Luther King
Yeah.
weekend, so our meeting's not till the 26th.
okay, well, if it's late January, sure,
So let's make January is our goal,
okay,
and that subcommittee could push that along and see if we could come back with some more information. To at least know, well, who do we need to talk to, or
yeah,
on
Is
anybody's
it Public
agenda.
Works, is it?
Yeah. So Nick will probably be
cause some of it might
happy
be,
to help us with that.
right, okay.
Okay.
So ad hoc subcommittee to report back to the full commission by the January meeting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I think that makes sense since the December meeting is with Parks and Rec anyway, and so we can get going in December
Yeah, we have to get going.
and we've
And
got.
December is, the December meeting, the joint meeting in December is rarely
It's no real business.
substantive, yeah.
Um,
So four is kind of done,
And
but you guys are.
Forest down, and we'll just
looking
keep
at
following up with Jennifer, Wise on that. Number five.
Five, we've
we've
just
got-
formed a new subcommittee. I'll probably name, you guys can take a look at the name and see if you like it or not.
That's what the acronym rules for.
An acronym.
You can't do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
But. Do you want to set a milestone? Sometime in 2026 to have a first report back to the full commission?
Yeah, I think it makes sense to have a deadline for, I don't know, a report, but at least, yeah, a plan, say like, here's the steps that we're gonna follow and.
I think that's exactly what the ad hoc subcommittee did.
Yeah.
They came back with kind of their own draft timeline and asked the commission if that was okay,
Yeah.
and then they went from there.
And again, I would say if you came back with something by the end of January,
Mhm.
it's like, this is kind of what we're thinking of, so that we can all have a discussion and then make some more milestones.
Sure, if that won't make the January meeting too busy, then that sounds fine with me.
We usually would have a subcommittee report at every meeting, however brief, didn't have to be, but it could be a verbal, because this is what we're doing, and
Yeah.
maybe a one-page summary. Especially at the beginning,
Mhm.
Okay.
okay?
So what I heard was, for setting milestones, and this isn't something you have to vote on necessarily, this can be by acclamation, as they say. The work plan number one is ongoing, so keep at it. Work plan number two, the ad hoc subcommittee is going to keep supporting the idea of a city council study session, but there isn't a particular milestone timeline set for number two.
Well, we're kind of conflating number two and number four, because number four is the one where we ask for a study session.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry,
Two,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I've
Yeah,
got the
two
wrong,
and three.
I have conflated two and four. Number two is the one where we were saying, by January, we were going to find, no. We
Three,
actually-
three,
We actually didn't discuss number two.
yeah, two is more long-term. Which-
It's
I
sort of
think-
ongoing.
and I think it's part of what's in the report that was part of the study session, so. I really think that all three of them. Warrant follow up in January,
Right.
or updates.
Well,
2, 3, and 4 can be updated on in January,
Okay.
because it's all part of the.
It's all
same
part of the same thing. I think number three
work. It's all part of the
is
same.
really, maybe the focus of the January will be
Three.
on number three. And
yes,
2 and 4
the
will be short
specifics.
dates.
Yeah, that'll be
Just
updated.
short, this is what our city council liaison tells us about 2 and
Right,
4.
because it's very dependent upon, city council member wise. When we schedule the study session, so.
Got it. Okay.
Okay,
And number five, sort of the same, we formed a subcommittee at this meeting and. Hoping that they will come back with some sort of outline timeline information by that January 26th.
great.
Okay, by acclamation. Like that phrase,
I do too.
by acclamation, I don't have a cup of coffee.
All right, so now I think we can move to item E3, which is to go over the draft of the 2026 Library Commission meeting calendar. So staff's going to provide a brief introduction, and then we'll take public comment and begin our discussion.
Again, a very brief. Introduction, around this time every year, we try to lay out. A meeting schedule for the coming year, both for members of the public, but also for. Members of the commission, so that they can have some. Have some information to plan around. We've taken a crack at it here, if it's in the packet, but I'll throw it up on the screen. The orangey rust colored dates are city holidays. The regular meeting of the library commission is the third Monday of the month. So just highlighting that in January and February of 2026, we're going to push the meeting back a week because of a third Monday holiday. March, April, May, June. Nothing much different unless we decide that we're going to have a joint meeting sometime in the summer. But other than that, everything pretty normal until we get sort of into the holiday season again. It looks like we're in pretty good shape for next November. Next December, I don't know that you'll want to have a meeting on the 21st of December, so that one might move. But other than that, these look pretty good to me.
Who's the May one?
Yeah.
Looks like the May one moved. Oh, no,
It's
no,
third
no, it's the
Monday.
third one, I'm looking
Yeah.
at this, so the 20, that's
The 25th is a holiday.
is a holiday, got it, okay.
A city holiday, yeah.
And we don't have to decide on the one on December 21 now, right?
We do not have to decide about December 21 now. You can at any point go. We're not gonna get a forum for December 21st, so we're gonna move that meeting to December 14th. And make it a joint meeting or something like that. It's just to have.
Yeah.
We need a planning tool, and this is
Yeah.
our planning tool. Also, it helps us sort of figure out when we're conflicting with other city meetings, like the planning commission's meeting, which is also a Monday meeting, is the one we conflict with most often. They're meeting right now tonight, so just to get this out there now before we all become too full of cookies and cheese, I think. That point is coming soon, I fear.
Okay, are there any public comments on this item?
Are there any comments on item E3, preparing a draft of the 2026 Library Commission meeting calendar? I see no comments.
All right, any comments by the commission? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the draft of 2026 Library Commission meeting calendar? Commissioner Crockett? The second,
I'll second.
Commissioner Westcott?
Right, we have a motion on the floor to approve the 2026 Library Commission meeting calendar. Made by Commissioner Crockett, seconded by Commissioner Westcott. Commissioner Abdullah, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Crockett, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Sisbot, how do you vote?
Yes.
Vice Chair Westcott, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Yule, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Chair Horton, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Schaefer absent. Thank you.
Okay, next we move to informational items. These are items that are transmitted to the Library Commission in staff's effort to provide an update on matters and reports to the commission. Informational items are not action items, however, a commissioner, city staff member, or member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items. So let's start with the Library Community Services Department statistics and recent activities.
I think we did a quick zip through this already.
Yeah.
But if anyone has any questions, comments on the statistics.
Do you want to start with asking the public comment?
Oh, yeah. Do we have any public comment on item F1, the LCS Department statistics and recent activities? No public comment. So, if anyone has any other questions, comments on this, it's.
It's sort of a general, are you surprised by anything?
No, not particularly. I mean, when we did the foot traffic ones, I was a little surprised actually that the foot traffic was so more closely matched service population than the other statistics did. So that was a little surprising to me, which is why I kind of highlighted it. But the reason that the libraries might be getting more foot traffic is because they're co-located with the child care center, the senior center, the recreation center, the pool. So there's a reason There are reasons other than going to the library for folks to go to the campus. But then some of those folks go to the libraries while they're there, which is kind of what we were hoping for when we built a combined campus. I can't think, can you think of anything else surprising from the department stats, Rose? No, okay. Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Okay, any other commissioner questions or comments on the statistics? Okay, next item is F2, so tentative agenda calendar. Just about at the end of the year, but there's, I think we've already talked about, what we may be doing at our January meeting.
Right, so in January, let me. In January, we're thinking that we would probably have, ad hoc subcommittee report out. The sort of two milestone goals that we talked about, that ad hoc subcommittee reporting out on number 3.
Yeah, let's call it a library of the future subcommittee.
Library of the Future Subcommittee. Great, LOF. There we go.
LOF.
LOF committee. And then also, the Bellhaven outreach. Subcommittee reporting out on their work 5.
Yeah.
In January.
Mhm.
Great. Anything else that's bubbling up? We have a couple of library presentations, I think, that are still hanging out there. The collection development presentation. Didn't we do that one? I thought we did that one.
I believe that that was taken off of the agenda.
Okay. So that's still out there. Maybe we'll slot that in sometime in 2026. And then around that January, February, March time when the budget is bubbling up.
Right.
Maybe have that discussion about operations and strategic planning, which is so.
That actually would be, that was on our work plan that was edited out. I think because the city council maybe misunderstood what we were wanting to do. We just were wanting to understand how the budget had worked in the previous year and what we were looking at. We're looking to be inserted in the budgeting process. So I think it would be really great if in January, February timeline, we could get, just some more detailed information. Because I personally don't find the site that we have to go to that easy to understand. And it would be nice to know, since it is a combined department of Parks and Rec and a lot of other things. Like, for example, how much of your time do you spend on aquatics and seniors and childcare center?
Very interesting, you should ask me that,
Yeah.
since we're doing this cost of services study. Where I have a giant spreadsheet with every employee and I'm supposed to put like what percentages go where for costing things out.
Right.
It's really difficult to kind of do that, but there's a significant amount of time that is spent by admin staff on different areas.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at that and it says that there's 11 FTE library. I would like to know, well, how much of those people are actually just working on library stuff?
Oh, those are, I think, all library stuff, those 11
Are you one
are.
of the 11?
I'm not, I'm considered a department admin staff, so we're kind of broken out already. Though I
How
do
about
spend,
Rose?
Rose
Are you-
is library, yeah,
And do you spend 100% of your time on library?
110% of her time.
50% of the time. Okay, all right.
But yeah, I mean,
In
but
general, yeah.
that cost of services study is probably going to come back with something early in the year as well. I mean, it will go out to the city council, but I think that might not be a bad thing.
It would be good.
You
for us to
could
know.
share that.
It would be
Yeah.
good for us to know also, I mean, for me personally, I wonder how the department allocation to the library division gets made. I mean, the entire budget for the LCS is something along the lines of 17 million or something like that. And the division of the library
I
gets
think it's 19, but yes.
19, okay, and the library division gets 3.2.
3.2.
That sounds right.
That sounds right, yeah. but it's
And how is
not,
that
yes.
determined? And each year, what factors go into that? That's really, to me, that sort of sets the table for the library for the year, and I wonder how that decision making is made.
Good
Great.
questions.
So that's something else for the
So maybe
Early
early
part of the year.
part of the year,
Yeah.
like maybe February, March.
That could be February.
February, it would have to be February, yeah. To have any. Okay,
Okay.
next we have commissioner reports. Would any commissioner like to make a short report out on items of interest to the entire commission?
Sure. Yeah.
Friends of the library have any?
I don't have anything new.
I had something which I just heard from, sorry, it's not a commission report, but it should have gone under, department report outs, is that I heard from the Friends of the Library had their quarterly sale on
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday, and they did very well. They did, better than they normally do for a quarterly sale. I think they brought in more than $10,000.
Just overall.
Yeah, in the 2-day sale, and
That's great.
normal numbers are anywhere between 7 and 9, I would say. Were quarterly
Great.
sales, so they did really well.
Do you know
Good for
why? Or do you have any sense of why? I mean, I know they were planning for this and perhaps because, you know, it's a quarterly sale, but this one is sort of the holidays.
Right, I think that's why,
Yeah.
but it also, I think, really just varies depending on what they have, what's been donated, what they have available for sale. Yeah, but because the quarterly sales, like the bookstore sales, are made up of more sort of run of the mill items, they're not the big items that cost $100 or $150, they're $1, $2, $5 items. I think it just speaks to the quality of the donations that they have gotten,
Also, it was raining.
and it was raining.
Okay.
I was happy because
So
I
that
went in
helps.
partly when I'm there, I see so many people with these electronic devices scanning everything to check resale value. And when I went to the most recent event, I did not see that. So it was nice because it was a little more calm, but I was also a little bit concerned. I'm so glad to hear that it did well.
It did really well,
Great.
yeah,
Wow, interesting.
so sorry to jump into the.
Yeah,
commissioner
so
I guess just
anything
to-
else? Yeah,
I describe, and Nick maybe could describe the Friends of the Library better, but they fund all the programs and services for the library, so they do such a wonderful job. And each year give a grant to the staff, to the library.
$100,000 or more to the
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah, I think it's the
They give a
most recent
significant
one
amount of
was
money,
180,000, right, something.
they make a fair amount of money, between $150,000 and $180,000 a year. And then turn around and give that back to the
and that's from
library.
book sales.
Yes,
Mostly
and
from
they
Yeah.
give me a tour.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Also donated a book last week, so maybe
Oh,
that
there you go.
Yeah.
You were correct.
I mean, it's an amazing
No, it
operation.
is.
They do such good work with the Amazon sales.
Yeah.
But
And then the second organization that supports the library is the Menlo Park Library Foundation. It's a fundraising organization that donated, I think, what, 300,000 toward books and et cetera for the Bellhaven Library. And they've been around a long time and have funded a number of things. I think starting back when they redid the children's library back in, was that 2000?
2010, 2012.
You were there.
Yeah, yeah, well,
Lost in the mist.
it's not
It's on the
a
cloud, we can go check it.
But in any event, I am the liaison to that organization, and they're very excited because they have funded the Romanticy Ball on December 12th.
Yes.
It's happening at the library, so that is a foundation.
They're live.
Yeah, and we will be there in our costumes at a table
Excellent.
for the foundation to spread the word. And we're just about to send out a annual fundraising letter and tout the work of the library commission, hopefully. So anyway, that organization is moving ahead, supporting the library this way too. One thing that I think is in goal number 5 is the Bellhaven Community History Project. which the foundation had, and this again, background is when the Bellhaven Community Center was finished. One of the things in the naming process, there was a lot of community desire to have some kind of a acknowledgement of the history of the area, that they wouldn't be forgotten, that was there, that lived there, that acted in that community. And Rose had put together a grant proposal that the foundation had approved, and now I guess it's being reworked. Are you gonna be at the meeting this week to talk about, when is the?
Thursday.
That depends on whether I have something to show you. I mean,
Okay, so at some point.
really depends on how my dental procedure tomorrow goes.
Okay. So at some point, we hope that that will get brought up again and we'll be able to see whether it's possible to support that.
I have a quick question about the ball.
Yeah.
Because when I go to the event page, the event calendar.
Should be live now.
Well, no, it's live after I approve it, right?
Oh.
Sorry, I just saw the notification come through.
Wow.
That's what happens.
So that's on the library
Refresh.
website.
Just refresh it and see if it
Well,
turns up.
it was in the library community newsletter and I didn't click on it because I know that I already had a ticket.
As a member of the.
So
library.
what are you
Because I'm on the
dressing up as,
foundation and
Carol?
Not as.
Right, but now it's live.
It's a free event.
It's a
but
free
it's-
event, but it does require registration, and I
Yeah.
did just approve the calendar listing for it, so it should be live. If it's not now, then momentarily.
And so that's under the library.
That is under the library. Yep.
Got it.
Yeah,
And you are dressing up.
we
You
all
have-
have to.
You
dress
have
up.
to, or you, they
You have
don't
I
let you.
don't know what
Do you
my
have a
costume.
character in mind?
I've been researching.
Okay.
I've been researching.
Formal wear.
Costume or formal?
But I highly suggest a costume. I'd like to see you all in costume.
I'm definitely wearing a costume. I just
Excellent.
don't know what it is yet.
Same.
I'm taking, suggestions.
But you could come as James Bond and do wear formal wear.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm
I'm
saying.
romantic theme. It's gonna be a character from a
James Bond is good.
romantic or something.
No,
All right,
it's just-
anybody else?
Okay.
This is your last chance before I bang the gavel. My favorite part.
I see the event.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, so the meeting is adjourned at 8:03.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good meeting. I like this
Is the
layout
recording
too.
stopped?
Um. And stopping.